Let's talk to Anthony. Hi, Anthony. You're on the Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey, Shannon. Hey, Matt. I wanted to make the argument that biblical inerrancy is not necessary for Christianity to be true.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Me too. Good talk.
Thanks. You know what is necessary for Christianity to be recognizable as true?
What is that?
Sufficient evidence to justify its claims about gods and the supernatural. Doesn't have to be inerrant. There can be errors in the book. But what needs to be true is that Jesus needed to exist, needed to be God incarnate, needed to die and be resurrected. Those things that are real tenets of Christianity, those things have to be demonstrable. And unfortunately, unless I've missed something, that's not the case. So I agree with you that biblical inerrancy isn't a requirement for Christianity to be true.
Same.
Well, I would almost argue that even if we, the stuff about the deity of Christ and the resurrection, I would argue maybe not even those things need to be true, because that's
come on.
Of
Come on.
Well,
really, for Christianity to be true, you could take the Christ out of Christianity, then it would just be anity. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Christ isn't a name, it's a title. You are removing all of the critical aspects of Christianity. Now, granted, this is a former Southern Baptist talking. But when Paul says, if Christ be not raised, then our faith is in vain, you're saying, well, maybe it doesn't have to be true that Jesus existed and was resurrected and Christianity is still true. No, I'm sorry. I'm not keen on saying no true Christian, because technically I don't get to define what is or isn't a true Christian. But if you're going to come up with a version of Christianity that is so far out of orthodoxy that it removes the deity of Christ, I would prefer, rather than sitting here talking to us atheists about it, that you go get some Christian theologians and scholars and convince them of that position, and then come back and say, I've got a bucket load of apologists who don't think it's necessary for Jesus to have actually been raised from the dead for Christianity to be true. Because they're just making shit up at that point.
Okay, that makes sense. But the reason I wanted to call in is because I often see atheists make this point that, if they can find one little mistake in the Bible, then all of Christianity, there's no reason to embrace.
Have you seen either of us make those points?
Have either of us done that?
Because you're calling in to speak directly to the two of us.
Okay, I can't say I think either of you has done that, but it definitely is something that occurs within the atheist community. That
there's a lot of stupid atheists with bad arguments, just like there's a lot of stupid Christians with bad arguments. For example, I don't know if you were listening, but somebody called in to tell us that well-being isn't a good foundation for morality, but harm is, and then couldn't tell us what the difference was between harm and well-being, and then just said that they hated us because we're wrong. I don't think that represents you or any serious component of Christian thought or theistic thought. But I'm not going to go calling up William Lane Craig's podcast to tell him how I heard this woman say that atheists are stupid and want to drown babies. So have you got something for us that's relevant to us?
Well, I want to present a version of Christianity that I think atheists can accept. I think for Christianity to be true, and I'm not going to take that much more of your time. I understand your point, but for Christianity to be true, really, there has to have been a real Jesus Christ human being with real disciples. And he really did have to teach them some kind of moral philosophy, and then they spread his teachings. Now, we may never be able to know what the truth of what he actually did and taught were, but I think as long as that foundation is there.
So you're just saying that a cult could be formed. Like, that's literally all you're saying. Like, we know Mormonism exists. We know Jehovah's Witnesses exist. We know there's myriad other cults that exist. So all you're saying to me right now, you're not in any way proving that it's true. You're almost proving our point, which is just that even if Jesus did exist and was some sort of apocalyptic preacher roaming around and managed to get followers, that doesn't mean that anything that he said was true. So you're just making an argument for Christianity existing without a God, which is what, like, Okay.
Yeah. The same argument you just presented for Christianity to be true, with only changing subjects, not actual content, could be true for virtually any religion. So anytime
Right.
there was a real person with real followers who taught them a message that they spread, that religion is true according to your model. Would you like to
Scientology
rework your
wins.
model?
L. Ron Hubbard got it right.
You're right, but you realize mythicism has really taken root over the last few decades or so.
We're not mythicists.
Anthony, neither of us
are
are mythicists. And that's a Tukko-K fallacy, because after you make a case for Christianity that we point out is incredibly flawed, you tell us you're right, but mythicism has taken hold. What the fuck does that have to do with us? Just own the fact that you had a shit definition of Christianity. It got pointed out, and correct it and move on.
All right. Well, okay. I'm glad you're not a mythicist. Maybe you could do more to combat that. I think it's
maybe you could do more to think fucking clearly and acknowledge when you've made a mistake.
So you're using this as a platform so that you can like air your grievances with every atheist who's ever like made you upset on the internet, is what it seems like. And instead of actually having a conversation with the two of us about what you believe and why, you're using us as foils so that you can say, well, maybe you should pick up this cross that I've decided I'm going to bear and go attack people who believe different things than you that are also atheists. I'm not sure why I would do that. Some mythicists actually do make good points. Like there's some interesting history surrounding mythicism, and it's an interesting thing to discuss. So why on earth would I go and attack them? Why wouldn't I have a good conversation with them about the things that they believe in why, which is what we're attempting to do with you, but it seems to be very difficult because you're just goalpost shifting so that you can pick another group of atheists that you don't like and then rail on us about how you don't like them.
Meanwhile, in addition to that, I've engaged with mythicists. I've had my mythicist friends, both Richard Carrier and David Fitzgerald, on my various shows. We've had discussions about it. I moderated a debate between Bart Ehrman and Robert Price. I've engaged on this subject many, many times, and I've been clear that I'm not a mythicist, though my position is really simple, and that is Christians cannot demonstrate reliably that Jesus even existed. That doesn't mean he was a myth, but it means they can't even meet that little burden of proof. But what I would want to know, Anthony, is why is it when you present here's how Christianity could be true, and we agree, you move on to here's how Christianity could be true, even though none of it's true. And when we point out the fallacies in it, the flaw in it, you say that we're right, and then you just change the subject to something else that neither of us are responsible for. Are you capable of acknowledging when you've made a shitty argument and trying to correct it and move on? Or did you just call in to try to trash talk people you don't like, which is what Shannon presumes?
No, I called in to speak. I know there's a large percent, maybe not you two, but a large percentage of the atheist community has bought into the notion that if the Bible has
okay,
errors,
I'm literally hanging up on you right now if Shannon doesn't do it first, because I didn't ask you to tell us about a large portion of the atheist community that you seem to have a fucking problem with. I asked if you were capable of owning up to your mistakes, or if you just wanted to trash talk, and you answered that by immediately trying to talk about a segment of the atheist population. So piss off, Anthony. I have no interest in talking to you.
Yeah, that's kind of frustrating. He just called and say, you guys seem okay. However, I would like to use your platform to just trash talk other people who aren't here to defend themselves.
Yeah. Hey, Anthony, I don't even know what version of theism you are, but how would you like it if I called you up and said, why aren't you railing against the criminal organization that is the Catholic Church that shovels pedophile, pederast priests around from parish to parish so that they don't have to face criminal prosecution? Oh, wait, you're not Catholic, you're Lutheran? Oh, well, that doesn't matter. It's still worth it. Why aren't you challenging them? I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's
Anthony.
Actually a better point. That's actually a better point, though, Matt, because that's demonstrably causing harm in society.
And it's true.
Saying that they don't think that Jesus ever existed as a historical person is an interesting thought experiment to me and harms no one.
Yes.
So they're not even analogous. Like your point is actually a valid one that could be brought.
I'm really sorry, Anthony,
like,
that atheists seem to...
Anthony, go tell the Thomists that they're wrong. I'm going to call
Yeah.
every podcast and be like, you know what? Talk to the Calvinists and tell them the tulip is stupid. There's too many Calvinists. What are you going to do about that? That's ridiculous. Anyway.
I'm sorry that so many atheists think circles around you, Anthony. It's rough.